Finally, we have enough under our belt to actually install Express.js. So let's do just that. Now, before we can install Express.js, see what I did to you there? Yeah, before we can install Express.js, we need to make sure we have our very own package.json, because it's package.json's all the way down as well. The only way you're going to be able to successfully deal with other third-party modules is to make sure you have your own package.json. Even if you're not expecting to expose your own application out, package.json, as we discussed, is where you capture the metadata about your project. Both human metadata like usernames and passwords, not usernames and passwords, of course, authors and keywords and descriptions and things like that, but we also have all of our dependencies in there. So even if you go to Express.js's homepage and they say, how do you install it? The first thing they tell you to do is do an npm init. And what you're going to find npm init does is it brings up a very simple command line based wizard that allows you to go in and answer a couple of questions, no more than 6 or 8 questions. What's the name of your project? What's the semver of your project? Give it a description and keywords, and then write out a boilerplate package.json with your specific project details. But you'll notice that this boilerplate package.json file doesn't include a dependencies block and it doesn't include a dev dependencies block. Let's fix that. Let's go in and type in npm install express --save. Now, the instructions you got on npmjs.org and the instructions you got on Express's homepage told you to do an npm install express. And if you do just that, npm install express, what npm will do is download the bits and put it in a magic directory called node_modules. But if you turn around and immediately ignore the node modules when you check it back into your project, you're going to be out of luck because you aren't carrying your transitive dependencies along for you. So what you want to do is make sure you don't just type in npm install express, but npm install express --save, which will do both things. It'll both download the bits and update package.json to make sure Express is listed as one of your dependencies. If we look in package.json, in fact, that's exactly what's happened. We have a new dependency block with Express's semantic versioning right in there. If for some reason Express were a developer dependency, we would type in npm install express --save dev instead of save to put it in the appropriate block. Now, of course, this is a plain ASCII text file. You could turn around and hand edit it yourself, and many times that's what I'll do as well. But if you're installing something from the command line, especially if you're using npm, you might as well throw a --save or save dev on the end of it to make sure your package.json is always up to date. So when we do an npm install --save, we will get executable bits and node modules. We will get metadata in package.json. And of course, the whole reason behind this is when you add a new person to your team, when she checks out the project from the code repo, all she has to do is type in npm install, and she has all of the same dependencies that you have, which means we haven't moved the goalpost, we've moved the starting line. So if we were to look in server.js, our application, we aren't using the HTTP library anymore that we saw on the homepage of Node.js. Now, in fact, we are. When we require an Express, Express is built on top of HTTP, but Express is the one that brings in that transitive dependency, not us. So we're able to bring in the Express.js module with all of its transitive dependencies under the covers. You can see we bring up our Express app, and there is some anonymous event handling going on once again. When we say app.get, that is accepting an HTTP GET request. If you're accepting posts, you'd say app.post, or app.put, or app.delete. The next argument in that function is the path. So when we're asking for something in the root of our application, here's our anonymous event handler with a request and a response handler. And whereas I don't normally like anonymous event handlers, this one I feel okay with because that event handler is tightly coupled to this path, and I can very easily mock out HTTP, as we'll see at the end of this presentation. So in fact, this kind of anonymous event handling I'm perfectly fine with. There's no pleasing some people, is there? So my application now, if I ran a tree on that, we would see that Express is loaded under the node modules directory. My package JSON contains all of my dependencies, and server.js is where I require in that module and set up the appropriate listeners. At that point, I can type in npm start, and I have not just a generic web server in place, but an Express.js web server in place.